My name is Landry Bradshaw. I was 31 years old the Thanksgiving night. My own father looked me straight in the eye and said, "We invited you out of sympathy. Don't stay long." The table went dead silent. My mom froze mid-slice, the carving knife hovering above the turkey like time had stopped just for her. My younger brother didn't even lift his head from his plate. Nobody laughed. Nobody corrected him. I remember setting my wine glass down very carefully because my hands were shaking and I didn't want anyone to see it spill. I smiled. The calmest smile I had ever forced onto my face. "Enjoy your dinner," I said. Then I grabbed my coat and walked out without another word. I didn't cry in the car. I didn't scream. I just drove straight through downtown Tampa, past the Riverwalk, past the restaurants, packed with families, laughing over cranberry sauce and wine, until I reached the small studio apartment I had secretly rented a week earlier. I locked the door behind me, and for the first time in years, the apartment was completely quiet. No yelling, no guilt trips, no demands for the next check, just silence. At the time, I didn't know that walking out of that Thanksgiving dinner would cost my parents their house, my brother his fake empire, and finally give me my life back. But that night was where everything finally broke. 5 years earlier, right after I turned 26, my life had shifted in a way I didn't recognize until it was too late. My father, Curtis Bradshaw, had always run our family like a small dictatorship. Loud voice, final word, the kind of man who still believed children owed their parents for simply being born. He retired early, not because he could afford to, but because he believed he deserved to. My mother, Gail, was his opposite. Gentle, conflict-averse, permanently anxious. She had a way of asking for help that sounded like love but felt like obligation. And then there was my younger brother, Cade, 27, 3 years behind me, and the undisputed golden child since the day he took his first breath. I had just landed a promotion to project manager at a mid-sized logistics firm in Tampa. For the first time in my life, I felt like a real adult. Steady paycheck, bonuses, health insurance, the kind of stability I had watched other people have while I scrambled. One Friday evening, still riding that high, my parents called me into the living room for what they described as a family meeting. Dad leaned back in his recliner, hands folded like he was about to make me an offer I'd be stupid to refuse. "Why throw money away on some overpriced apartment downtown?" he said. "Move into the guest house. Free utilities. You'll have privacy. Just kick us $2,000 a month toward the house payment. Everybody wins." Mom smiled at me, hopeful. "It would really take the pressure off us, sweetheart." I bought it completely. $2,000 for a detached 2-bedroom guest house felt fair, responsible even. I honestly believed I was helping my parents stay afloat after Dad's early retirement. What I didn't know, what no one told me, was that Cade had already started his long streak of business ventures. First came the vape shop. 6 figures in inventory. Flashy neon signs. 8 months of declining sales before the landlord changed the locks. Then came the drop-shipping empire, which mostly existed as Instagram ads and never shipped a single order on time. When crypto and NFTs exploded, Cade convinced himself he was about to be the next digital millionaire. He maxed out every card he could get his hands on. When the bubble burst, he cried to Mom about bad timing and market manipulation. Every collapse followed the same pattern. Cade would disappear for days. Mom would corner me in the kitchen, whispering like Dad couldn't hear. "Your brother just needs one more chance, honey. He's so close this time." And because I was the only one with reliable income, because I was the responsible one, I paid emergency fund, bonuses, same-day transfers so suppliers wouldn't sue. Each time, I told myself it was the last rescue. I didn't realize I wasn't helping anymore. I was enabling. What I wouldn't discover until years later was the ugliest part of all. Early on, while I was still celebrating my promotion, my parents quietly opened a $150,000 home equity line of credit. Interest only for the first 10 years. Variable rate, no questions asked. That money didn't fix the roof. It didn't pay medical bills. It disappeared into Cade's failures. And the $2,000 I proudly handed over every month, it wasn't paying down the mortgage at all. It was barely covering interest and hiding how close they already were to drowning. At the time, I thought I was being a good daughter. In reality, I was becoming their safety net, their buffer, their unspoken backup plan. And I didn't see the trap until it finally snapped shut. 9 days after Thanksgiving, my phone started lighting up like a Christmas tree. The night I walked out, I had driven straight to the downtown studio, poured myself a glass of water, and sat at the kitchen counter with my laptop while the adrenaline was still buzzing in my chest. I logged into every single account I had ever linked to my family. The family credit card, the cell phone plan, streaming services, even the utilities for the guest house. One by one, I removed every authorized user, deleted every saved card that wasn't mine, turned off every autopay that had been quietly feeding their lifestyle for years. It took less than 30 minutes. When I closed the laptop, the silence in that apartment felt louder than any argument we had ever had. For the first week, nothing happened. Then, right on schedule, the messages began. Mom was first. A simple text that popped up while I was in a morning meeting at work. Internet and cable just went out. Did you change something on the account? I left it on red. That afternoon, Dad blew up my phone. 6 missed calls in a row, then a voicemail that started calm and quickly turned into yelling. He was furious about the family cell plan being suspended because the card on file had been declined. "Call me back right now, Landry," he barked at the end. "This isn't funny." Cade waited until evening. His message was short, angry, all caps. "Fix the damn card." I didn't reply to a single one. Not a word, not an emoji. Nothing. For the first time in my adult life, I let the notifications stack up and felt absolutely zero guilt. The only person I answered was my cousin Autumn. She and I had grown up more like sisters than cousins. She had watched the entire circus from the sidelines for years. She was the only person I had ever admitted to how exhausted I really was. When her name flashed on my phone that night, I picked up on the second ring. She didn't bother with small talk. "I heard what happened at Thanksgiving," she said quietly. "And I saw your face when you left." She paused. "You finally did it, didn't you?" I told her everything. The studio, the accounts, the silence. She listened without interrupting. Then she let out a slow breath. "You've been rescuing them for 5 years straight, Landry. 5 years of your money, your peace." She didn't hesitate. "It's over now. Let them figure out what life looks like when the ATM stops working." I didn't cry. I didn't laugh. I just sat there on the floor of an empty living room, phone pressed to my ear, listening to the hum of the air conditioner. For the first time since I was 26, nobody needed anything from me. That silence wasn't empty. It was the loudest thing I had ever heard. Over the next few days, the messages kept coming. Mom tried the soft approach. Photos of the dark TV screen. Sad face emojis. Dad left another voicemail threatening to come talk in person if I didn't fix the bills immediately. Cade sent 3 more texts, each one shorter and angrier than the last until he finally stopped altogether. I never responded. Instead, I went to work, came home, cooked simple dinners on a hot plate, fell asleep to the sound of nothing but my own breathing. For the first time in years, nobody was waiting for the first of the month. Nobody was counting on me to make their problems disappear. Then, on Thursday of that same week, an email stopped me cold. The subject line read, "Unusual activity detected on your credit profile." I opened it during lunch, expecting a false alert from all the recent account changes. Instead, a PDF from my credit monitoring service showed a brand new business credit card opened in my name less than 2 weeks earlier. Limit, Chinsezech, 0. Balance, $48,000 already charged? My hands started shaking as I called the issuer. The fraud specialist walked me through the application details while I sat there gripping the phone so hard my knuckles went white. It had been applied for online, using my full social security number, my exact address, even my previous employer as a reference. The electronic signature was a scanned copy of one I had signed years ago on some family paperwork I barely remembered. Almost every dollar had been transferred as cash-like payments into accounts tied to Cade's latest company. I hung up and dialed my mother before I could talk myself out of it. She picked up on the first ring. The moment she heard my voice, she knew. "Mom," I said, keeping my tone level. Did Cade open a credit card in my name? The line went quiet. Then I heard her start to cry. He was just borrowing it, she said softly. The store was about to go under. He promised he'd pay it back before the bill even came. Borrowing. That word hit harder than anything else. All the times I had bailed him out. All the money I had handed over without question. And now this. This wasn't help anymore. This was identity theft. I ended the call with a quiet goodbye and spent the rest of my lunch break filling out the identity theft affidavit on identitytheft.gov. I froze my credit with all 3 bureaus. Submitted the FTC report. Sent every piece of evidence the bank requested. No police report. No screaming confrontation. Just paperwork. That afternoon, the bank launched an internal investigation and assured me the charges would be removed from my record. They couldn't tell me what would happen to the person who actually used the card, only that their recovery team would pursue repayment separately. In other words, Cade was about to have conversations with people who didn't care that he was trying his best. Sitting in my car after work, staring at the confirmation emails, something inside me finally shifted. Up until that moment, I had told myself that going silent was enough. That cutting off the money was enough. Seeing my name on that statement changed everything. They weren't just draining me anymore. They were willing to destroy my future to save Cade's present. That was my breaking point. The bank told me it could take 30 to 60 days to fully clear the fraudulent account. That was fine. For the first time in years, I wasn't in a rush to fix anything for anyone. What I did next wasn't impulsive. It wasn't emotional. It was deliberate. 2 weeks later, I sat across from a forensic accountant named Michael in a quiet office near downtown Tampa. He came highly recommended through someone at work who didn't ask questions, just handed me his card and said, "You'll want this done clean." I brought a USB drive. 5 years of statements, Venmo logs, Sella transfers, screenshots, bonus deposits that vanished within hours. Everything I had ever paid, transferred, or covered. Michael plugged it in and started scrolling while I watched the timeline appear on his screen. It didn't take long. Within an hour, the picture was brutally clear. My parents had taken out a $150,000 home equity line of credit years earlier. Interest only, variable rate, structured to look manageable until reality caught up. The $2,000 I paid every month didn't reduce the mortgage balance at all. It barely covered interest. Late fees stacked on late fees because even with my money, they still fell behind. And almost every extra dollar, every bonus, every emergency lined up perfectly with Cade's business collapses. Michael turned the screen toward me. Over 5 years, I had given them roughly $120,000. Less than 10% touched the original mortgage. The rest vanished into interest, penalties, and Cade. I wasn't helping my parents stay in their home. I was the buffer keeping the bank from realizing the house had been drowning for years. Michael leaned back and said something I'll never forget. "From a financial standpoint, Landry, you were never a tenant or a contributor. You were a hidden line of credit." I asked him to email me the full report. Every annotated statement. Every breakdown. Every dollar traced. I stored it all in a locked folder with 3 backups. Not because I planned to use it right away, but because I finally understood something important. People who lie about money don't stop when you set boundaries. They stop when they hit consequences. 6 weeks after Thanksgiving, my doorbell rang at exactly 8 p.m. on a Thursday. I looked through the peephole and felt my stomach drop. My parents and Cade, they stood in the hallway like they had rehearsed it. Dad in front, arms crossed, Mom clutching her purse, Cade staring at the floor. I opened the door just wide enough to see them. "We need to talk," Dad said. "Say it here," I replied. "Mom went first. We're selling the house," she said quickly. "There's a buyer. Closing in 3 weeks." I waited. Dad took over. The equity line rate jumped again. The bank sent a notice of default. We're 90 days out from foreclosure. He paused. "The problem is the house needs repairs. Closing costs. Paying off what's left on the loan." His voice lowered. "We're about 30,000 short." Mom's voice cracked. "We wouldn't ask if there was any other way." Cade finally spoke. It's not even that much compared to what you used to help with. That was when I raised my hand. I stepped inside, grabbed the thick manila envelope I had been keeping by the counter, and handed it to my father. Inside was everything. The reports, the highlighted statements, the 5-year breakdown showing exactly where my money went. Dad flipped through the pages, his face draining of color. Mom gasped when she saw the totals. Cade leaned forward, but Dad pulled the envelope away. "You can't help us one last time?" Dad asked quietly. I met his eyes. "The house was gone the day you hid that loan from me." Mom started crying. Cade muttered my name like it was a curse. I stepped back and closed the door. The deadbolt clicked. That sound was final. I watched through the peephole as they stood there in silence before turning toward the elevator. That was the last time I ever saw them. 4 months after the night I closed that door, the dust finally settled. My parents did sell the house, but the closing statement told the truth they had avoided for years. After paying off the remaining mortgage, the swollen balance on the equity line, realtor commissions, and last-minute repairs they had to finance with a high-interest personal loan, there was nothing left. Not a check. Not a cushion. The bank took every penny. They moved into a tired one-bedroom apartment on the north side of Tampa. Thin walls. Coin laundry in the basement, the kind of place where you hear every argument through the ceiling. Their credit was so damaged that no lender would touch them. They sold both cars and now share an old Corolla that barely runs. Groceries are paid in cash, vacations are memories. The thermostat stays at 78 all summer. For the first time, they were living within their means. Cade's fall was faster. Once the credit card company finished their investigation and removed the charges from my record, they went after the person who actually spent the money. No criminal charges, no dramatic arrest, just collections. Judgments, closed doors. Suppliers refused to extend credit. The landlord padlocked his last storefront. With a credit score in the low 500s, he couldn't lease space, finance equipment, or even get utilities in his own name. Last I heard, he was working 12-hour shifts unloading trucks at a warehouse in Lakeland. No investors, no startups, no one left to bail him out. Meanwhile, my life moved in the opposite direction. The money I used to bleed every month stayed in my account and started growing. 6 weeks after I stopped being the family ATM, I was called into the CEO's office and offered the director role I'd been quietly preparing for over 2 years. 9 months later, they promoted me again. I'm now a vice president. My bonuses stay mine. My credit score climbed back into the high 700s. Last month, I closed on my first house, a 3-bedroom with a small backyard in South Tampa. 100% in my name. Walking through those rooms with keys no one could ever take away felt like breathing clean air after years underwater. Autumn still hears updates I don't ask for. Apparently, my parents tell anyone who will listen that I destroyed the family. That everything would have been fine if I had just helped one more time. Cade blames me for everything that's happened since Thanksgiving. I don't lose sleep over it anymore. Because here's the truth I finally understand. I didn't break my family. I stopped paying for the lie they insisted was love. When the free money dried up, the cracks that were already there finally split open. That wasn't cruelty. That was consequences catching up to choices they made long before I ever knew the full story. If you're watching this and you've ever felt like the only thing people value about you is what you provide, please hear this clearly. Your worth is not your wallet. Your peace is not negotiable. And the moment you stop setting yourself on fire to keep everyone else warm, you finally get to feel what real warmth actually is. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. If any part of it hit close to home, drop a comment and let me know what resonated most. Share your experience if you feel safe doing so. Sometimes, just knowing we're not alone changes everything. And if you know someone who needs permission to choose themselves, send them this video. Take care of yourselves out there.